Do you remember the old restaurant Babalu in Fondren? That's where Amerigo is now at Duling School. Well, the ceiling there still had the glue dots on it from where the tiles once hung. And instead of covering them up, the designer behind it left them right where they were. That instinct to let a space keep its history instead of erasing it has carried her from a scrappy converted schoolhouse restaurant into one of Jackson's most recognizable design voices. Hey, it's Paul Wolf with a front row seat to conversations on culture from Jackson, Mississippi. We call our podcast Soul Sessions. It's the people, places, and events that make the city with soul shine. On today's show, we're catching up with Mary Sanders Ferriss Cavicchi, founder of Ferris and Company, back for her second appearance to talk about stewarding Campbell's Bakery and Hal Mal's with her husband Damien, restoring the Kennington Mansion in Belhaven, and helping shape Downtown Jackson Partners' new urban design studio. A conversation built around a lesson she picked up early from mentor Bill Latham. Sometimes the most interesting detail in the room is the one you decide not to fix. Welcome, Mary Sanders Ferriss Cavicchi, to Soul Sessions.
Thanks for having me. I'm excited to be here.
You were one of our very first guests in season 1, I think like episode 2, maybe?
Something like that. I don't remember the exact episode, but it is one of my favorite ones I've ever done with Scott.
Oh, artist Scott Allen, yes, was also your co-guest on that one. That was a good one. You two have worked together a lot, haven't you?
We have. We've worked together for a long time at this point. I'm still bugging him for random things for projects every day. He's a good partner in design crime.
Well, we're going to fast forward back to the future, 6 years after your first appearance on this podcast. And you've been musing a lot lately on your Instagram account. I think you're getting kind of nostalgic for the city that you call home. And so I was looking at your Instagram post about downtown, and you wrote that you've roamed these streets in love with every corner since your Millsaps years. Interviewed for your first job at the old Edison Wathall, took your wedding photos on top of the Plaza building. So I want to know, what is it about downtown Jackson that just gets under your skin that way? And if someone moved here tomorrow, where would you send them to feel that same kind of energy?
Yeah, somebody asked me the same question yesterday. I wish that I had like a really amazing answer for it. I personally love historic buildings and old spaces and reimagining things. And so I think downtowns naturally have that. And there's something about our downtown that even from when I was younger, there was always kind of opportunity. Like at that time, at Millsaps time, King Edward was like completely boarded up. And I would just drive around and kind of think about what downtown could really be. I also really love the community that's down here. I think the people that are down here right now really love where they are. And that I think is really important. There's just a lot of opportunity for interesting spaces. We've got Smith Park, we've got all the museums. There's a lot of culture down here. So I think that for me, that's it's kind of the heart of culture in the city. And I mean, really a lot in Mississippi. So yeah, I've always ended up down here and have always loved it. And it really did kind of inspire me becoming a designer. So I think in that way, I also have kind of a little bit of a soft spot for it as well.
I read this on your Instagram too. I know you think I'm stalking you there, but
okay.
You said places like this can't be built. They have to be cared for and stewarded for. So where do you think that instinct came from, and when did you first realize you had it?
Honestly, I grew up in an old house. I like to fix things, and that can be a variety of stuff. The history that is in old buildings, not only can you not replicate the actual architectural details in today's age, but the history that has come before you, to just tear that down and build something new, that seems very wasteful. And I think a lot about that, in buildings. I think a lot about that in furniture. In my entire life has been kind of a vintage antique hunt for clothes, and I guess apparently now buildings. But I think that the reality is we kind of you have to take care of that. That's why things like the National Trust exists for preservation. I think that's why you see Archives and History really caring for their buildings and what they're doing moving forward, and how they encourage development through historic tax credits. I think we all know that it is expensive sometimes to care for old buildings, but at the same time, the quality and what exists, again, it like can't be replicated. So I've always loved it. And like I said, it doesn't even occur to me that other people don't think the way I do.
And I love it. It's like when you walk in a house that's for sale and some people can see the potential and other people walk around and go, yeah, I don't understand.
Yeah. Yeah. I love renovation work. And honestly, I like renovations so much more than I love like brand new spaces, because I do think there's like something about taking something that's old and making it new again. Somebody called me the other day about a house that needed to be renovated. And I guess, it's not as, people aren't doing it as much as they were. And so I think that it's important. You want things to have character. You want things to have charm. And I think that's important.
Well, you're a multi-hyphenate. You mentioned restorations and interior design and product design and brand management and business development. But speaking of doing things with charming spaces, you've said Babalu at the Duling School was where you really cut your teeth in the restaurant world. What did that project teach you about building a space that people actually want to linger in?
It's funny, I was having this conversation with my husband the other day. I think that nostalgia is really important to people, whether they know that they're like remembering something specific, but they just know that it gives them a certain feeling. And the great thing about Babalu is it was in an old school. It was adaptive reuse space. And, I think there were details within that space that we tried to somewhat maintain, even as simple as like just the way the windows in that space really, gave it a level of character. I used to talk a lot about how like the ceilings had like the glue dots from where the tiles fell down, and everybody kept asking me like, what's this really cool ceiling detail? And I was like, it's actually not a detail. It's like the choice to like not cover it up. I think that space was one of the first places where I really learned the importance of like how people feel in a restaurant. And working with Bill, I mean, that was a lesson every day in kind of the restaurant industry and how people interact with spaces and also just restaurants in general. And so I think that really kind of started my love for restaurants and is really like something I think about. I mean, I should have like a "What would Bill Latham do" bracelet. I think about what he would do all the time.
Bill Latham, Babalu days. R.I.P. to Bill and to Babalu as well. I miss that place every day. I really do.
I know, me too.
Mary Sanders, you've described your approach as finding beauty in small, ordinary things. I know even in your own home, you've painted rooms black, built around a fireplace with just 2 chairs. What kind of draws you to that idea that a small space can feel bigger or richer when it's given intention?
I think we have this tendency to think small spaces need to be like, oh, we've got to paint them white because it's got to make it feel bigger. And the reality is a small space is never going to feel big. Like it's not going to happen. And so if you can play into the coziness of a small space, and you can do that with color, you can do that with ceiling heights, you can do that with drapery. There's all kinds of ways that you can do that. I think that you just embrace kind of what it is and play off of that. And that's honestly kind of how I approach a lot of like design in general. And I think that's when I talk about liking renovations in old spaces is like you look at kind of what exists and what it could be. But you don't want to like, I used to say like, you don't want to feel like you're in Disney World. Like you don't want to like feel like you walk into this like fantasy land that doesn't match what's on the outside. And I think that's important. Like I think it's important that the space scale and the exterior and the interior and all of that reflects kind of the original intent of the building. It doesn't mean you can't modernize it, because I mean, my house is over 100 years old, but I still have modern fixtures in it. However, I like embrace the pieces that are historic to the building.
Yeah, you talked about your husband, Damien Cavicchi, earlier, and the two of you came in and bought Campbell's Bakery and then Hal Mal's, and then you added the walk-in to Hal Mal's on the far side. It used to literally be the walk-in cooler for that railroad depot there. When you both did that, you called it a bet on the city's future. You know, Hal Mal's has such a reputation. It's a place where you might come to catch a band or a meal or a mayor or a musician, and some of that might actually happen all at the same table. So what did you see in those places that made you want to preserve that kind of heart while still reimagining what comes next?
Really, Damien was the one that saw Campbell's and a little bit of both. I mean, I had always loved Hal Mal's and Campbell's, but I think I was probably a little bit closer to them because I grew up here and I knew them for so long. And the idea of trying to like step into Malcolm White's shoes feels like almost impossible. And so when the opportunity came up for both of them, he was kind of the one that was like, yeah, let's take a look and let's see what these could be. I think that Hal and Mal's is such an important building in downtown. I've always loved Commerce Street outside of just like the downtown corridor. And I think that to have lost that for the city would have been really sad, especially at that time. And so for us, it was really trying to preserve the idea of Hal and Mal's, but I think we're still kind of working through how do you move it into the future. The walk-in was definitely one component. What we're doing with event spaces is another component. The trail is now coming behind us, so we're trying to think about how to interact with that. But specifically for me, it was not wanting to lose something that was so important to generations of Jacksonians. And I think with Damien, it was intriguing because he grew up in New Orleans. There was, we joke about always wanting grit and culture, and it had all of those things. And so it was great. And I think the walk-in has been a huge success for the business. I mean, there are times the walk-in does better than the dining room. It's brought a whole new clientele downtown. It kind of created something that was missing in the market. And we knew we had to do that if we were going to get people from like the Tri-County area to come to downtown for a night. It had to be something that was kind of intriguing and something that they wanted to see. And so I think we've been able to do that.
It's a fantastic place with a fantastic menu, and it really has become the hip hangout for the younger crowd. But then, I mean, you really see people of all ages there, don't you?
Yeah, I mean, that is, again, I said this yesterday, it's one of my favorite things about Hal and Mal's is you see every type of person there. It's, everybody from a 22-year-old will be sitting next to a 65-year-old at the bar. People from different backgrounds. It really does kind of I don't know why it does it. I don't know what part of it unifies the city in a lot of ways, but I love that piece of it. And I think that's something that was part of the history and that we really think is important to kind of continue to shepherd that into the future because we want to make sure that we are a good melting pot for the city of Jackson. And so I think that, again, the walk-in has done that with young people. The way we cultivate and curate different types of shows, it does that. And I've always said the building feels best. When there's multiple things happening in the building actually feels alive. And that is the best feeling in the world. And so I think that that's always our goal is we don't just like it when just the dining room is open. We like a lot of things happening at once.
Back in your neighborhood of Belhaven, I know you worked on the Kennington Mansion project, and that was something, it sounds like it was kind of personal for you because you said you'd always dreamed of buying that house. So what was it like getting to know that building, one that you had admired from outside for so long?
Yeah, it's such a beautiful home. I had done some work for the previous owners in their pool house, and really had just at Belhaven, when bright lights, I used to walk through the backyard to get to the front. So I was always kind of what is this amazing place? Telling the story of kind of Kennington's as what it was for downtown and kind of what it was for the city through the design in that space was really fun. The client kind of trusted me. When we talked about what their goal was with the building, I was like, this is not something that I'm going to be able to present to you. This is something I'm going to have to go out and find and shop and, estate sale and antique market. And so we did that and it really did come together kind of, I hate to say how we envisioned it because we really didn't have a real complete vision, but we knew kind of the feel we wanted. It hit all my high notes.
You have worked on so many projects all over the country, really, but here all over town, a laundry list of places that you've worked on. But is there a moment from any one of these projects where you've seen your philosophy come to be, and that is that making the guest happy is ultimately what makes the clients happy?
True. That's a great question. I would like to think that I do that in a lot of them, but I will say there have been times that I've learned lessons. I've definitely had projects where I didn't fully know a client. And so it I just designed kind of what I thought would make sense kind of early on in my career here. And some of those, I feel didn't hit the mark in the same way that I think our newer stuff does a lot of times. It's always so important to me that the brand piece is such a big thing. And when I say brand, I mean like every component, not just like a logo. If I can hit all the notes where the guest understands like what the owner was trying to convey and all of that goes together and like, I don't know how to explain it. Like it goes together in the right way. It's like some of my favorite times is like sitting in the restaurant and during opening and people saying like, oh, I don't feel like I've been in Jackson, or oh, like they notice little details. Like at Fine and Dandy, we had two dogs, like two Dunlaps dogs, like underneath this like oil painting of a hamburger. And there was like a playfulness to that. And that was something that people would comment on time and time again. And I just like, I think if we're like creating details that customers notice, but that tell a story, then I think we're doing it right. So I don't know that there's like one specific project, but that's always kind of my goal. And when I feel like I've like hit the mark correctly.
Mary Sanders, you are intimately involved with the future of Jackson and specifically downtown Jackson, where you have businesses. I know you're on the board for Downtown Jackson Partners and been involved with the new urban design studio in the Heritage Building on Capitol Street. So what does it mean when you start thinking about like handing the reins over to young leaders, young graduates, the future of downtown, kind of thinking about what it could be? How do you view your role in the shepherding and stewardship of that process?
Yeah, so I think like if we're talking about the urban studios specifically, that was a project that was modeled off of some projects that were done in other cities, Chattanooga and Detroit. And Josh McManus, who you've had on the show before, he had done those in these other cities. And so he had this like a little bit of a tweak of an idea that ended up working in downtown Jackson. And so the goal with these is really like bringing the students together and having them help kind of like solve problems, but also see opportunities in downtown that like maybe we're not seeing because we're like, I don't want to say jaded, but we're just like, we're busy doing the things we do all the time. And so when we built the urban studio, one of the things, like it was important that we made it a flexible space and a space that students would enjoy being in. But that also like at the time, which this makes me insane, it was like, we didn't know what we were doing with the space exactly, because it's like up to the students to decide what's happening. And so it was creating something that was movable and flexible and like helped them have vision into what, a space could be. Like that was a really important part of building that space. And then I am like excited about the young people that I've been around who've kind of been in and out of the studio so far. So I'm hopeful that like I can be of help if needed, or I can get out of their way if needed. But I think that there will be some good stuff that comes out of it. And so as far as like how I feel about like shepherding them into the next chapter, I think that I'm happy to be here as like a sounding board, but also like I want people to have like good creative ideas and things that maybe we wouldn't think about. And so I'm excited to see what they come up with.
What's on the horizon for Mary Sanders Ferriss Cavicchi? You got any big projects in the works that you can give us a glimpse into?
Yeah, I mean, from a Ferris and Company perspective, we've got Josette, which is a restaurant going into Fondren in the fall. We've been working on that for the last few months. The Living Room, which is a nail salon that's going into Banner Hall. I think that's going to open probably in September, October. I hate saying dates. We just finished, Aplos, obviously a Jackson brand, but it's growing and it's opening in Oxford. And we've got some ideas outside of like Ferris and Company specific. We've got some ideas that we're working on kind of on Commerce Street to kind of help unify the businesses there and kind of create an area that really does connect to the trail. And we're kind of thinking about some things to do with the big room and how do we get that to connect into the trail. So we've got some things cooking. We don't have anything exactly like ironed out yet, but I imagine there will be some new additions in the next 12 months, like on Commerce Street in some way.
That is Mary Sanders Ferriss Cavicchi, whose story is about the discipline of leaving well enough alone. She talked about resisting the urge to paint every small room white just to make it feel bigger, choosing instead to lean into the coziness with color and character. And she talked about why Hal Mal feels most alive when a 22-year-old and a 65-year-old end up at the same bar. That mixing, that's the point. It's not an accident. This fall, keep an eye out for Josette, which she designed, opening up in Fondren, along with the Living Room Nail Salon coming to Banner Hall, plus her work on Commerce Street near Hal Mal's. We'll have links in our show notes to Mary Sanders' work at visitjackson.com/soul sessions. Soul Sessions comes to you from Visit Jackson, the destination organization for Jackson, Mississippi, the city with soul. Our executive producers are Jonathan Pettis and Dr. Ricky Thigpen, and I'm Paul Wolf, managing editor and host for these conversations. Keep up with everything happening in the city with soul at our website, visitjackson.com. And if you have a question about Jackson or a story idea you'd like for us to explore, send it my way. It's pwolf@visitjackson.com. Thanks for listening. I'll talk to you next time.